So this is one of the most important lessons that I've ever learned about life. And I just so happen to learn it while on my semen retention journey. So I'm going to share it with you, okay? So when we're young, right, or a little bit more naive, which it's fine, you know, we're all there at one point, you're stuck in this idealistic version of love and how things are and how life is, you know. You want to believe this Disney story of love conquers all. They'll never, you know, when you get married, it's forever. You know, this person's never going to leave me. We got to fight through all this stuff, and we have to, you know, we have to work through it, okay? Generally speaking, that doesn't work out, right? So when you're young, you meet someone super special, and she's the one, you think that she's it for you, right? Without knowing it, you start to compromise your values and your beliefs and who you are for this person because you love them so damn much. They become your priority, your reality. And things go really well for a while. You're in love, she's in love, and you just think that you beat the game of life. And then what happens? One day, you get cheated on, you get left, you get abandoned, you get just left on the side of the road with after you just took a good emotional beating. And when you finally pick yourself up off the ground, you're just left sitting there with all these questions. But more importantly, you're left sitting there with a whole bunch of anger and resentment toward dating and women and relationships. Okay? This is the analogy of like where the player is born, right? I heard it explained so well one time where it was like all of the guys that are juggling 3 or 4 women, the most charismatic guys, the charming guys, the chads, the alpha males, like all of these guys, man, that just get all the girls. Those guys were once super nice, vulnerable, and emotionally open men, you know, and they got their heart broken. And they vowed to themselves, I'm never going to do that again. I'm never going to be vulnerable, open, and honest with a woman again because they're not doing it with me. So why should I do it with them? Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. All right. So you might even go into the red pill community a little bit. You might start watching those videos about those guys that talk about, you gotta play this manipulation. You gotta manipulate women. You can't trust them. Female nature is incorrect. They're taking advantage of you and your money and your time and your emotional energy, all of it. They're just taking advantage of you. You got to be vigilant. You almost have to borderline hate them. You got to have this resentment built up for them because you got to be vigilant. All right. So we've now moved from the idealistic stage of life. All right. That's where everyone starts. Okay. And a lot of people stay there forever. Which it's fine if you want to just stay that's why this stuff is so hard, because realizing some of these truths of life sucks. It's awful. You start to see the reality of how things are and the reality of how people are. Like when you realize that most of the people around you are probably not even your friends. Like that's a hard truth to swallow. It's a very hard pill to swallow. A lot of people just don't want to believe that. That's the problem with a lot of people in spirituality, is that they stay stuck in this idealistic part of life and they choose to ignore all of the actual realities and quite frankly, bad things that are in this world. All right, so we've moved from the idealistic part of life. Now we're in reality, okay? Now reality kind of sucks. You start to see the truth about the female nature. You start to see the truth about people in life. And it's really easy to be bitter. It's really easy to resent that. That's why people get so cynical in life. You talk to so many people that are old, that as they just have spent time on this planet, and they just get so cynical toward things. Because it's like, well, why shouldn't I? I've seen, this is how it is. It's like, and this is the reality. Like a lot of these truths are very rough, as I said. So yeah, it's natural. And quite honestly, it's fair. Right? But if you're doing semen retention the right way, when you're on semen retention, you are practicing a timeless practice, right? The act and the practice itself is very pure, right? It's a very high level behavior to do, right? Because you're awakening spiritually. You're developing a sense of self-awareness and self-love and self-compassion just by the sheer nature of doing it, right? If you're doing it the right way, if you're doing it with introspection and you're being honest with yourself and, you start to heal, all right? So as you begin to heal, those truths and those realities and all that stuff is still there. And you talk to a lot of people that are like, I'm done. I don't want to do this. I don't want to be a part of this anymore. It's okay, whatever. And that's fine. And I totally understand that. Right. But I think that that's a cheap out kind of way to look at life. All right. So then you have this third school of thought that is hard. It's very hard. All right. Because it's a choice and it requires a lot of effort, right? You can't go on autopilot for this one. You can still choose to believe that, or you can still choose to live in reality and choose to accept the way things are, right? But that doesn't mean you need to focus on all of that. Because yes, relationships in the female nature with men and women, quite frankly, when it comes down to the core level, we're using each other. We are, What are men? Men, they are there for down to the core essence, okay? Now, I'm not talking about the fluff and I'm not talking about the day-to-day life and all of that. The core essence of how things are, we're there for the feminine energy. We're there for companionship. We're there for sex, and we're there to get that, right? That's what the woman provides for us that we love so much. It's that feminine energy, all right? Women, on the other hand, and so men are kind of easy. As long as a woman kind of fits that criteria, it's like we're in, generally speaking, right? Now, women are looking for something a little bit different, all right? They have a list of things that they want out of a person, out of a guy. Does this person meet my specific criteria for security, safety, the financial means, and all of that stuff? Is this going to be a good suitor to help raise my child? This is all biologically driven, all right? So there's nothing you can't get mad at someone for doing this. Right? Because when you start to see these truths and these realities, you might want to take that out on people. It's like, well, they can't help it. They just can't help it, right? So you start to see these truths and these realities. Hell, it could even be that a woman just wants your emotional energy, right? Because you being with her activates that certain part of her feminine essence that allows her to be emotionally available and emotionally open. Right? But down to the core essence, we are using each other. All relationships are like that, right? Again, generally speaking, okay, and I know this is a little dark, but it's the reality and it's the truth, okay? But here's what I'm going to say about that. Most people just stop there, and they either just stay kind of cynical, resentful, bitter, angry. Even if they get to a place where they're like kind of neutral, it's like you still can't help but see this you can't unsee this reality. So it's like, all right, whatever, it's fine. Now, what I'm going to say about this third perspective is that you can be and get to a place where you're not ignoring reality and ignoring how things are. But that doesn't mean you need to necessarily focus on that. Because yes, there are so many amazing things that are happening in relationships and with women that can be one of the best parts of your life. And you can choose to be there for those things, but still accept the reality that this other stuff is there as well. But that doesn't mean you need to focus on it, right? Your perception is your reality. And the way that you live your life is going to be through your own lens and what you focus on. You don't have to focus on all of the dark, negative, kind of harsh truths of life, but you can still accept them and still be there, as you should. I'd rather someone be in a place where they see the realities and the truths as opposed to living in some idealistic part of life and just ignoring how things actually are. That's a better place to be than the idealistic part, right? But that doesn't mean you need to stay there, right? Now that's true alchemy. That's true transference, all right, of energy and turning it into something positive. That's hard to do. All right. And I've concluded, and this is just another reality of life. You're not going to be able to do that. You're not going to have the spiritual energy, the mental or emotional energy to do that without semen retention, without retaining. Because, you know, in the beginning, we're using semen retention so that we can go out to the bars and go out to the coffee shops and have more confidence and have more, you know, more charisma, more spirit to get women. Right? But as you progress through your journey, those reasons might just change of why you're doing semen retention. And that is a very healthy, positive reason to be doing, to be doing semen retention. Okay. I stayed there for a long time. Even if I wasn't bitter, angry, or upset, I just quite frankly didn't want anything to do with dating or relationships or women and all that, because I just couldn't unsee this reality. And it was hard because it's like, well, and most people are not going to want, are even able to talk about this stuff. So it's like, I have to kind of just sit here with this. I can't even talk about this with my partner. And then I kind of realized, well, that's a cheap answer. That's not. And you know what? I don't have to, and that doesn't mean I have to focus on that. Maybe I could focus on all the positive things that a relationship brings. I could even focus on the positive sides of when you're on semen retention, and if you're honestly doing it and you're doing it with the introspection, you're going to heal all of those parts of yourself that made the women leave in the first place. Your codependency, not having your own orbit. You're going to develop true masculine energy, right? And then you're going to attract a true feminine woman who's also done the work, right? And then you guys are going to date and it's going to be amazing, or you guys are going to get married and have kids or whatever you want out of life. You should have that, and you should go do that. But then you can still accept and realize, like, this is just how it is. And I promise you, you'll be the happiest. It'll be the happiest and best relationship you've ever had when you just accept the fact that this is how things are and you choose to actively play that in a positive way. Just choose to focus on the positive, because you're in these relationships and it's not all bad. There is love there. There is genuine connection, and there's peace, and there's those amazing laughs and that time you spend with someone that just you can't buy. Do it for that. Focus on that. Do that with all aspects of life, because this world is a dark and negative place. Like it's just if you start to really choose to see how things are, it's dark and it can be very negative. And yeah, I understand that you can be bitter, resentful, and angry. It's totally fair, but it's too easy to just stay like that. It's almost like you're giving up. Do you want to give up and not experience and focus on the amazing qualities and amazing other parts of life? That's fine. That's a question you're going to have to answer for yourself. And I'm not saying this is easy to do. Okay, it's not. But love is real too. Just because those truths and those realities exist doesn't mean that love doesn't either. Right? Even if it's only love because you're providing what this woman says, in her little internal subconscious list is, you're providing for that. It's fine. You can still choose to to focus on just that love, right? And if things go south, she leaves you, or the relationship or the marriage ends, or something big, drastic changes because of that, okay. I'm still accepting that reality because it is what it is, and I understand that. Yeah. Let me see if there's anything else, because all I'll say is to be in that third realm of accepting reality, but choosing to focus on the positive, choosing to focus on love, that takes strength. You're only going to get that strength through semen retention. All right. Hope everyone has a great day.